Here we are in Rally 3. My Maxle Special R here out in the track with a new paint scheme based on a prototype, either called the Pirelli paint scheme or the Pirelli HF paint scheme. I'm currently doing a rallycross race, stage 9. As you can see, it's a snow track. I've got the preferred line curved off. It's a little hard to tell exactly where the track is. You're going to have a little more trouble if you're not familiar with this track. When you get onto the snow, it's somewhat more difficult to see where the track is. But back to my car here. It is based on a real paint scheme. When we come to the end of the race here, this video will be in 3 segments. We're about to finish the first segment, me doing the race here. We just covered the last lap of it there. We will go into a replay of this in spin mode so you can actually see some of the details of the car. I'm going to take it back to the start of the race. The camera will spin around the car here. You can see it looks a little different than the ones supplied in the game. It is not true to the actual car in itself that raced many years ago, back in 1970s or 80s. I could not do anything about these sponsors that much. As you can see, it is not called Pirelli. It's called Dealer. I did try to stick to the main red, white, and black portion of the vehicle. It did not have mud flaps in the original vehicle, and my red is a little different than the red on the car. I found the shape of the car perhaps slightly different. The side of the car might be a little bit higher on our race model, our game model here, so the red is perhaps a little higher up on the sides, so I didn't narrow it as much around the cabin, the roll bar or the wing-like portion there at the back end of the cabin. The red would have been a little further from where the support joins the bodywork there, and it would have been a lot easier to mask that than what I did. As for some of the other sponsors, they're a little difficult to do on this car. Depends on how you project them. The ones on the rear spoiler there, they'll shoot through onto the rest of the bodywork. If you have some of the bodywork behind them, you can mask them out if you prefer to do it that way, but I prefer not to, so I just change the angle to project them onto the spoiler. It also has the same problem at the front of the car, where I've got a little Pirelli in the center there. When we get back to the front, you may see that, and it says Walsh on each side, where on the original car it would have said Lancia, the model maker of the car. It's just coming around. You can see Rush there on each side. I made that a Rush Rally and masked out the rally portion of the Decal. As for the back of the car, I didn't get a really good, have a lot of shots to see the whole works of the car. I decided to make the rear taillights inside of a white wheel well rather than blacking the whole thing out to give a little contrast back there. And I do believe there was a little white on the original car around the tunnel where the exhaust comes through in the back as well. As for the other sponsors on the car besides the HF, they're all nonsense essentially, because we've got nonsense sponsors to work with pretty much in the game. You can do some things with them by in combination, making them into something that might sound reasonable, such as there's a Campanello sponsor on the original car, and I decided to go with I think it's a Michelin or something. Now how about we exit this and we'll just go take a quick look at it in the vinyl section of the customization of our car. Upgrades, customize vinyls. And here we go. We can take a little better look at the car itself. I did not do all the tiny little decals that would have been on the car. And some of the decals you can see on here are not original decals. The only one I tried to really make that is something like the original and the original placement are the peeler, which were in the place of Pirelli. The HF I made by doubling the H and sliding it, and the F, sliding it forward to try to make it stand up because we don't have a bolt option. And as I was saying, on the front of the car here, you look right at the front there, I've got Rush on the red on each side. It would have said Lancia. It also would have said Lancia on the rear spoiler right by the peeler there. And back was what I was saying about projecting onto the spoiler. I projected something like an angle like this so it did not shoot through the spoiler onto any of the other bodywork back here. And the peeler would have been on the back side, on the black, would have projected something like this so it didn't contact any of the bodywork. I also had to do that with the Rush up here. Instead of projecting it down this way, that way, I had to project it like this. Otherwise, it would project underneath the car onto the black section there. I also outlined the light socket there for the two little lights underneath the Rush. It took a little bit of work because when you do some symmetries, they don't line up perfectly. So I did symmetry with a quarter circle on the outside and then I did a square to the other side. It does not do inside, it will not do inside the socket, so that would not turn the white. And then I had to mask the one on one of the sides to make the width right around the socket the same size. As for doing the masking on the side of the bodywork, you can do that a simple way, just projecting a straight line onto the red, doing the red with symmetry. And I know there is supposed to be a little bit of white around the front windshield. There's also supposed to be a little more white, as I was saying, around the roll bar and the side there a little more. But that I found it narrowed up the red too much. It was quite a bit of trouble to mask right at the edge of the roll bar and the back of the cabin there. That was very difficult to do. I also found it took a little bit of masking to touch up some of the edges as well, such as the top of the spoiler, trying to do the top of the pop-up lights. And that was about the most difficult part. Trying to get the masking of separating the red and the black was not overly difficult. It did take a lot of pieces because of the way I did it. I tried to follow what looked like a little crease in the bodywork, so it is not a straight line on my example here. And I found any way you do it, you also have to do some masking where the main bodywork joins the rear spoiler if you want the red and black to line up perfectly. The black going over the top of the front wheel wells is just done with a semicircle and symmetry there. I did an approximation of what it looked like. If you disregard the fact that it says peeler instead of Pirelli, it's not that bad. At least I don't think it's all that bad. The proportions are a little different. As I say, and as I was trying to say earlier, it does not have all the small detailed decals. I try to make decals that look somewhat the same shape, but not the super small decals that were on it, such as there were some decals perhaps on the roll bar aerodynamic effect at the going over top of the cabin. And my little decals here for, I can't zoom in on this, where it says wooden power. It said magnetic something or other. It was that kind of style, except for the letters were a bit of a curve, which I can't do with the decals in the game. It wouldn't have, and the decal underneath that, mine is all nonsense and small enough you cannot read it, so it doesn't really matter. And the decal under that, I've got Michelin in the same colors where I've seen this paint scheme with a Campanello there. As for the number placard I've got there, the white, the outline of the white, I decided to modify the shape I've seen on this car a little bit and came up with that and decided to put a few other decals in there. The HF seemed to have an Italian flag there, and underneath it another decal. I came up with a decal, Italian Pro Association Rally IPA. And underneath the peeler in the front, at the side there, I just came up with some more nonsense that looked like, can't remember exactly what the sponsor was. But you think that's a project car you'd like to handle? It's not all that difficult, and I will make this one available should Stephen Brown, our games developer, allow for exchange of decal packs amongst players. So that's it for now, and I hope you found this entertaining or at least useful.